Welcome to Walkouts and Knockouts, brought to you by the Five Regions Sports Network. I'm your host, Jonathan, aka ThreePieceCombo, and today I'm joined by two fight geniuses, the OG, Mr. Alfredo Arteaga, and the young man who actually his friend fought last night, Mr. Ariel. How are you guys doing on this wonderful Friday?
Great. Excited for a good. We have like a good month of good combat sports coming up.
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead.
It gets kicked off tomorrow night, right? I mean, this fight card is awesome. I am super pumped. I'm pumped for my boy Olivier Aubin-Mercier, who won last night in the PFL, as you mentioned. Put on a fantastic performance, dropped his opponent, looked great. So happy for him. Want to shout him out. And yeah, let's get to this card, man, because it's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, great month. You said like you said, Al, great month. But honestly, just a great weekend. We had PFL last night. We have Bellator and Invicta tonight. Tomorrow we have Shakur Stevenson. We have UFC 263. And on Sunday morning, we have one championship over in Japan. All the major promotions are showing out this weekend. Bunch of events. Actually, there's also a Rise In event. So if you want more Japanese Pride-style events there. But let's get into the main event of the weekend, UFC 263, headlined by Israel Adesanya versus Marvin Vettori 2. Also on that card, we have the rematch of last year's fight, potential fight of the year, right? One of the best fights ever, probably the best fight of that division's history. We have Deiveson Figueiredo taking on Brandon Moreno. This is a fun one. Both guys had a short camp going into last fight. If we remember, those fights were scheduled only on 3 weeks. Now they have a full camp to go at each other. And there's even more. Nate Diaz taking on Leon Edwards in a 5-round special. This is the first time, if my memory serves me right, this is the first time there's a 5-round fight that's a non-main event or title fight, right?
I believe so.
So absolutely stacked. Of course, on top of that, we have a welterweight showdown. Belal Muhammad taking on Damian Maia. Damian Maia, potentially the last fight of his career. Belal Muhammad streaking, right? Streaking, I think, 7 of his last 8. Coming up on the welterweight top 10 now. So he's a name to look out for. Remember the name, Belal Muhammad. That's his nickname as well. Paul Craig taking, of course, Jamal Hill in the opener for the main card, and also some bangers. We'll talk about some prelim bangers. I'll headline those a little bit later in our 3-piece combos, 3 fights to watch as far as prelims go. But let's get started. I want to say Brian Young. We're not talking about the YouTube versus TikTok market star. No, we're not talking about Lamar Odom fighting and Chuck Liddell being the guest referee. I mean, I kind of wish I did. I mean, if we had more time, maybe. But unfortunately, we're not covering Lamar Odom's fight.
Let's just hope that Chuck Liddell doesn't get hit. That's all.
Yeah, true that, right? And Players Ball said you have the nerve to mention PFL, but not Clarissa Shields. Why? It's obvious. Hey, man, we did a whole ass show yesterday. Me and Al stayed up till about 2 a.m. last night because the show ended about 12:30.
We did an hour. Players Ball. We did an hour. You can look it up. A lot of other people downloaded it. It was a popular show. We did an hour on Clarissa Shields last night. An hour.
They did that show last night, man. It's obvious if you're paying attention.
Well, Player Balls, appreciate you joining us anyways, man. If you want to check us out, our reaction, pretty much top 5 or 10 minutes post what happened last night, you can check that out on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel as well, because that was, man, I was absolutely stunned how she was able to come back in that one. But if you want to watch our reaction to that one, like I said, go check out the one on the YouTube channel there. But this main event, let's get right to it. We have the rematch for probably, I mean, I guess you can say this is Israel Adesanya's toughest fight in the middleweight division, right? I think this was his toughest fight. But we have the rematch between Israel Adesanya and Marvin Vettori. Now, obviously, this fight happened 3 years ago, almost to the date, in the same location over in Arizona. It was a close fight. Vettori was able to secure some takedowns. Izzy was able to stand back up. Most people think Izzy won that fight, right? If you look at the decisions, it's pretty unanimous that Izzy, obviously we have some pretty shitty judges. If you look at the fights last night, you can talk about that as well. But pretty fun backstory. Press conference was a lot of fun, a lot of back and forth with these guys. Israel Adesanya just clowning Marvin Vettori. Marvin Vettori, 100% Italian beef. Marvin Vettori is out here, and he has a lot of beef with Israel Adesanya, getting in his face. Izzy burping in Vettori's face. It's great, man. It's a comedic, fun fight. This is what you want to see in a fight. Ariel, I know you're a big fan of Adesanya, as am I. We're big Adesanya stands in this one. How do you see this one breaking down? Who do you think between that first fight and this fight 3 years later, who do you think got better in that time period? Who do you think improved more?
That is a difficult question to answer. I hope you guys have a little bit of a better answer than I do. But to be honest with you, man, like I think they've both improved quite a bit. Izzy's really just grown into his own as a champion. And going into his last fight against Jan Blachowicz, I really felt like not only was he going to win that fight, but he was entering Anderson Silva territory for me a little bit in the sense of like how I perceive him and his beatability, if that's even a word. I didn't really feel like, there's a whole lot of guys that can give him a ton of trouble. I felt like the fight for him would have been someone like John Jones. That's out the window, at least for right now, for a little while, for sure. But, I mean, both have really come into their own as fighters. Izzy has that championship experience. He's gone 5 rounds. He's been in deep waters, and he's responded in kind. Marvin Vettori, really good fighter. I don't know. I mean, the first fight was, I thought Izzy definitely won, but that it wasn't a blowout. Like, I don't think he destroyed Marvin Vettori, right? Like, I thought that it was a relatively competitive fight.
Right.
Marvin on paper poses some stylistic issues for Izzy Adesanya. His defensive wrestling, his takedown defense was not elite, was not amazing in that Jan Blachowicz fight, but I don't think that Marvin Vettori is Jan Blachowicz. Marvin Vettori, to me, very good grappler, but not necessarily the caliber of wrestler of, say, like a D1 level wrestler. So I think that, he might land a few takedowns, right, and put Izzy on his back, which is really the only place you're going to have a chance to beat him, because if you're Marvin Vettori, because you're just not going to outstrike him. It's a very dangerous game to play. That has to be the game plan for him. I don't know if he gets it done. I guess we'll go through predictions in a little bit, but like I said, as far as who's improved most, I don't know. They've both improved a ton. They're both on fire if you throw out Izzy's last fight, and so I'm very excited for this. I love the backstory, love the beef. It's going to be a good one.
It's going to be a good one. Plays ball saying Izzy is no John. Yeah, I agree for now, right? Still has a long ways to go.
For sure.
He weighed in at 183 pounds, so he's really light. He's almost the point where he can cut to maybe a welterweight, which would be interesting. Alf, do you have any thoughts on this real quick? Who do you think can improve more?
Yeah, that's interesting because it's interesting what Ariel said. Last win is against Holland, Kevin Holland. A few months ago, there was a time where we were thinking maybe Holland was going to get a shot at Adesanya. But he looks bad against Derek Brunson. Then he looks bad against Vettori. And now Holland's completely out of the picture. So maybe that says a little bit more about Kevin Holland than it does Vettori or Brunson, right? Their last fight, they called it a split decision. I don't see where Vettori got around, because unless they're just really giving him credit for the takedown in the third round. But he worked and worked for that takedown. Couldn't get it. Then finally got it. Didn't advance it. And then not only did he not advance it, but Izzy stood up on him inside of a minute after he took the takedown. So who got better? I don't know. Is Vettori going to be able to take Adesanya down easier this time? Because last time it took him 3 rounds to do it. And, has he improved as much? I think Adesanya since then has seen a lot more. And he's a guy who tends to download a lot of information. So I think Adesanya is more likely to be better in this fight than Vettori. Vettori, he's a southpaw. I think Adesanya last time he had a chance to just pump a jab into his face and just control the fight that way. But at the time, he was battling, I believe, was that coming off of the Yoel Romero fight or
the?
Oh yeah, he had beat Paulo Costa, and then he went to fight Jan Blachowicz. Is that the one you're talking about?
No, when he fought Yoel Romero, when Adesanya fought Yoel Romero.
Right.
It was before he fought Vettori the first time?
No, it was right before the Paulo Costa fight, right after the Whitaker fight.
Okay, all right.
No, yeah. That Vettori's fight was 3 years ago. That was before he fought Brad Tavares, before he fought Brunson, before he fought Rob the first time, before he fought Gastelum. So that was way back.
They've both had quite a few fights since then. I think Adesanya in that Yoel Romero fight where it was basically you start, I start, or I'm not going to start and you're not going to start. And I don't know who was going to start this fight. I think since then, I think he's ready to take the initiative against somebody like Marvin Vettori. If Vettori's going to actually stay in his crouch, fight him southpaw, and just try to throw a bunch of lead
lefts and lead rights to try to get a takedown. I think Izzy Adesanya has to know, at least if he went to school on the first fight, he has to know all he has to do is just box him, just pump that jab into his face, and eventually you'll get him because he's there to hit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like it's going to be interesting to see what happens in this one. But as far as who improved more, I think Marvin improved more because Izzy was already good, right? Izzy was already pretty good. He had that kickboxing background. He just learned how to incorporate it more into MMA. I felt like he started to learn that feel for MMA. Just want to address this comment real quick. Izzy is overrated, not striking my overall. Okay, so John Jones, I can see where you make the argument there. What's his name? Anderson Silva, I can see where you make the argument there. GSP, of course, I can see. Royce Gracie, come on. I mean, I understand that Royce was a great of the time, but Iceman, like
just let me just jump in on that. I feel that way about the other guys mentioned in there too. John Anderson, those are two of the greatest of all time for sure. Did you mention George St. Pierre? You did. Okay, good on you. The rest of that, they were all phenomenal for their times and obviously are all legends of the sport, but I wouldn't put them in the same breath as John Jones, Anderson Silva, and George St. Pierre. That's just a different level of sustained dominance over years and years. Like Anderson Silva was the middleweight champion for something like, I want to say like 8 or 9 years, might be more, like somewhere in there before he lost his title because he was clowning in front of Chris Weidman. So we don't have to go there. I don't think it's crazy to say that a guy like Israel Adesanya is approaching the type of territory of a Chuck Liddell. If he gets a couple more spectacular knockouts, like he's getting there. He's making a name for himself in that respect. And man, like I love the point that Alf made earlier about Izzy being like he just downloads the info of his opponent and then he figures out how to attack. That's where I draw the Anderson Silva comparison. Anderson used to do that as well. Anderson was more of a spectacular, like, holy crap, that dude's out of the matrix type of finisher. But Izzy's still young enough to where he can improve. He's not a finished product, in my opinion, for sure.
Yeah. I think a guy that Izzy Adesanya is probably aspiring to be in that certain class. I think Dan Henderson. Yeah. I think Dan Henderson, that's like what he's aspiring to and what he's close to. Maybe Shogun Rua, something like that. He's in that class. So, he's not far from GOAT status, but, he's going to have to put together some wins and win some super fights, which might be coming soon.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. If he can put on that weight, I think he can get those super fights going a little bit more. And Ariel, I'll let you break into this one because you were talking about it a little bit more already. What do you think Izzy has to do actually for this fight to get the win?
Just keep the fight where he wants it to be. It's pretty simple. I mean, if he's able to, like I said, Marvin Vettori, solid grappler, has a really good ground game. But in terms of like pure wrestling and getting the fight to the ground, I think Izzy is able to do enough. Like Alfredo had mentioned, that first fight, it was like Marvin had to sell his soul to get a takedown in that fight. I think this fight is pretty similar. Izzy knows exactly what Marvin wants to do with him. Izzy's too technical on the feet to get caught. Like we refer to the puncher's chance. I think this one is like less than a puncher's chance if it stays on the feet. Izzy's too good. Like he picks up on your tendencies. He downloads all the information like a freaking computer, and then he decides the plan of attack going forward, and then he picks you apart. And I think that's kind of how this fight is going to go. It's going to be really hard for Vettori. The only real pathway for him to have sustained success in this fight is you find a way to have a clean entry without getting kneed or just cracked in the face on your way in. You drag him to the ground, and then once he's on his back, there are definitely vulnerabilities. It's just getting the fight to that point. Like Vettori doesn't have some superbly elite power double where he's just going to blast through whatever Izzy throws as a counter shot as he makes his entry to the takedown. Like he's not that type of grappler. So I don't feel like it's a great stylistic matchup for him.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Keeping it standing, right? Chop those legs. I think he's going to probably want to do a lot of counter striking, doing what he did with Costa, right? He did a lot of misdirection, especially when he got to the cage. He would do a quick step to the left, right? Costa would go swinging to the left. Boom, he ducks over to the right. He's so good with that lateral footwork, man. And that's what makes him so hard to hit. That's what makes him so good is because he's so hard to hit, right? He's a guy, I think maybe outside of Kelvin Gastelum, nobody's really put a lot of touches on Adesanya. You look at a guy like Paulo Costa, this guy was knocking everybody out until he came and he met Israel Adesanya, and Adesanya just came in and tore him up. Let's get to his opponent a little bit. Ariel talked a little bit about this one. Alf, I'll let you touch on this. What do you think Marvin Vettori has to do? And let me put it a little bit different. What do you think he has to do differently? And we know he has to get the takedowns. What does he have to do to get to the takedowns?
Well, first of all, he fights southpaw, and the great boxing trainer, he was right after Teddy Atlas. He was Mike Tyson's trainer, Mickey Rooney. He said that southpaws are really good at two things: throwing lead lefts and getting punched in the face. So he's going to have to be a little bit more elusive. He's going to have to be more side to side. He can't just try to bulldoze Israel Adesanya, because I think Izzy this time, like I said earlier, man, I'd hate to say that it's going to be easy, but if I was in his corner, I would tell Izzy, look, man, forget all that switching. It's completely unnecessary. Fight him conventional and stay behind your jab and just dictate the fight with that. And if people boo at the start of round 3 because you smoked them the first 2 rounds, then let them boo. It's not their body. It's not their championship, right?
Not their money.
And it's not their money. So if you can dominate, if the easiest path to winning the fight is just dominating with your boxing, staying behind your jab, and fighting conventional. Now, if I'm in Marvin Vettori's camp, man, you got to take him down. Like the front page on Izzy is there, right? Jan Blachowicz kind of told everybody and showed everybody how you can get over on Izzy Adesanya. So how do you do that? Well, you can't do it the way he tried last time, which was trying to eat a bunch of jabs to get in there, because I think this time Izzy can and will hurt him, because I think he'll have him measured, because he saw what he did last time. So I think he's going to have to try to find an angle and just try to get takedowns. And once you get takedowns and you score takedowns, just stay active. And if you stay active, you'll fool the judges. Even if you're not doing any damage, you'll fool the judges. Did you get any sense that Jan Blachowicz was actually beating up Israel Adesanya in his last fight?
Only the last round. Only the last round.
I thought it was a close fight. I really thought it was a close fight. Yeah.
But he fooled the judges into giving him a decision because, he was in the dominant position. So he's going to have to try to emulate that. Can he? I have my doubts. Will he? He better.
I mean, like you said, you have your doubts, right? Because now, for sure, Jan did what he did. Jan's also 30 pounds heavier than Izzy, right? At least. And probably has like 30 pounds on Marvin as well. Or 30 pounds on Marvin, probably 50 pounds on Izzy, because Izzy doesn't, really cut that much weight anyways, because he's a skinny guy. But let's get a predictions. It sounds like we're all aboard the Adesanya hype train here. Alf, is that where you're at?
Yeah, decision. I think he does the work. I think he goes back to school on what he does best and takes the easiest path, which he should. There's no reason to extend yourself. There's no reason to put yourself into any type of danger. It's your first fight back in the house you built, like you said, after the Jan Blachowicz fight. So, I'm not saying take it easy, but, bring the punishment, but stay within your game plan. There's no reason to even switch. Just stay behind your jabs, put your punches together, keep them all straight, move. You got the fight won.
Where are you at with this, Ariel?
I think Izzy is coming into his own a little bit, in the sense that he's starting to embrace the whole bravado around fighting. Like, you used to see Anderson Silva defeat guys before they even stepped into the ring, right? He would play mind games and mess with them. And if it was Chael Sonnen in that weigh-in, he would shoulder bump his face. If it was, what was his name? Vitor Belfort, he's wearing that mask. Just dudes would be defeated because of the mind games Anderson played, and partially because of the aura that was around him. Now, I don't think that Izzy has that same aura, mainly because I think the Jan Blachowicz fight might have taken a little bit of the luster out of that. But if we're being objective here, I genuinely feel like fighting Jan Blachowicz in that smaller octagon affected the way that Izzy Adesanya wants to fight. He wants to keep the fight at distance. He wants to move around. He wants to bounce. He wants to get in and out of range, pump his jab, pump the front kicks, all of the range distance stuff, and then pick his pop shots and end the fight. He's not able to do that the same way in a smaller ring against a pressure fighter. So I don't take as much away from him from losing that fight. As far as this fight goes, I think Izzy's on a different level. Love Marvin Vettori. Very good fighter. Solid middleweight contender. But Izzy's at a different level. I think he's able to avoid the takedown. Like I said, I don't think Marvin Vettori is able to power double or trick Izzy, cut him off. I think Izzy's constantly circling and moving in and out of range and dictating where the fight is taking place. I think he picks Marvin Vettori apart for the majority of this fight. I actually think he finishes him somewhere in the third or fourth round. I think he's pissed off based on the result of the Blachowicz fight, and I think he wants to remind everybody he is that dude, so he gets a TKO in the third or fourth round.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm at. I mean, if you're watching this fight, I just want to, make sure you watch for two things. Watch for first thing, Marvin Vettori is an Italian. He has not a lot of melanin on his skin. Look at his legs. By the time that second or third round comes around, the outside of his, his lead leg is going to be chopped up. And we know that he's not a great striker to begin with. So if he chops that leg to the point where he has to switch stance to an orthodox, that's just going to mean even more trouble because, and like you said, he's just a master of range. I think Marvin can get a takedown or two. I think he can get like a blast double, one or two maybe, but I think for the most part, I think this is going to be a stand-up fight. I think, like you said, Izzy's movement is too good. Marvin's going to get gassed out. Like our boy that Alex M said, he's going to coast to 5 rounds. I think he wants to finish him, right? Because he said over and over in his interviews that he wants Marvin to know that he had no hope coming into this fight because he's hung on to that split decision loss so hard that he wants to make sure that this time there's no hope. He talks about what Usman did to Jorge Masvidal, that everybody was saying, oh, he hugged him and he only had 7 days notice. Hey, he knocked that motherfucker out. Like, you know what I mean? He did what he had to do. Like, and everybody shut up. Like, I'm a big Masvidal fan, and I shut the fuck up. Like, what else are you gonna do? Respect the guy who did what he did.
Masvidal shut the fuck up. Masvidal after the fight said, "Look, he has my number. Like, there's nowhere else to go with this. He beat me each way.
Took him out to the shed, man. Just slaughtered that boy. That was a tough one.
That was rough. I want to get to some of these comments real quick. Players Ball saying, big ups, guys. I'm feeling it, picking with the time and attention. Very much appreciate it. I appreciate you joining us, my man. Thank you for coming and joining us, and watching pretty much the whole thing with us. Alex M saying easy by flying knee. We could see something where like a Dan Hooker. Who did he knock out early this year? Frankie Edgar, right? Was it Frankie Edgar?
I think. I don't know.
Right?
Too many fights, man. I can't remember anything.
Yeah, I think that was the knockout of the year, right? He that Frankie Edgar fight where he just kneed him to oblivion. We can see something like that because if he's shooting a lot, leaving his head down, man, that's gonna be true. And Brian, that's absolutely fucking true, man. Holland had a lot of moments where he had Vettori hurt when even as little as he was standing, right? And Izzy, like you said, is a different beast, dude. And Izzy's gonna. Dude, I think he's gonna fuck him up. And that's where I'm at with this fight. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, just that Holland is more wild and takes more risks than Izzy, whereas Izzy's approach is more measured in that he knows exactly like when to throw his shots, where the openings are going to be. Holland's just a savage. Hasn't looked great in his fights, but is what it is.
Yeah, Holland is like he's great value. Izzy Adesanya. So
all right.
Yeah,
on Red Bull.
Didn't bode well. That didn't bode well for Vittori.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
This one.
I'm a big Kevin Holland stan. So he's working with DC right now, and he's working with those wrestlers over at AK in California. Our boy Kevin Holland is gonna make his comeback, and he's gonna get some wins. He took short notice fights, and he was fucking people up.
Rematch against Brunson. Like I'll get excited for that. Get the rematch against Brunson. Loser go home.
That's such a bad fight for Holland. I hate that fight.
But he has to get past Brunson. Like you can't have that on your record. You can't have getting absolutely dominated and ragdolled on your record. You have to get that one back. He has to get that one back. If he wants to fight for some gold, he has to get that one back.
Right.
Absolutely, man. So let's get into this co-main event because we spent a lot of time on this main event. Let's get to this co-main event because this is a pretty freaking good fight as well. Deiveson Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno. Number 2. First one obviously ended in a draw. I think it was 1 for Moreno, 1 for Figueiredo, and then 1 was a tie. Obviously, we had the point deduction because of the nut shot in the second or third round, so that kind of swung things a little bit as well. But we saw some things from Brandon Moreno that we haven't seen from any other person in this division. He's able to eat that shot. He has that Mexican chin, right? That Mexican toughness, and it comes out and it shows out in this fight. Alf, I'll get to you on this one, man, because we talked about a little bit about Brandon Moreno and that toughness last night. How do you break this one down? Who do you feel coming into this rematch has the better opportunity to get the win since the last one was on short notice?
No, I think Figueiredo. I think Figueiredo had to have. I thought he got caught by surprise by what Brandon Moreno was actually doing in his last fight. Brandon Moreno was actually stalking him, walking him down, putting punches together and then absorbing punishment. And Figueiredo, after a while, was out of ideas. Like, okay, I'm going to put my punches together. I'm going to try to win the decision here, but I'm not going to do much else. So I think he was caught by surprise. I think he'll be better prepared this time around. If Moreno can, sometimes it's not that a fighter leaves it all in a fight, but sometimes a fighter shoots his shot for his career. And Brandon Moreno is either an elite flyweight or he shot his shot against Figueiredo. I'm just gonna take a guess because I don't know, because I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other. I'm gonna say that Brandon Moreno shot his shot last time against Figueiredo, and Figueiredo can have an easier time of it this time around.
Fair point. I think we have a little bit of conflicting views on this one, right? We talked a little bit earlier. So you're going, I'm just gonna go with common sentiment from what you're saying. I'm feeling you're going with Figueiredo. Ariel, what does Brandon Moreno have to do to win this fight? I think you're muted, brother.
You're right. Brandon Moreno has to stick to what worked for him in the first fight, right? Like, so in that fight, first of all, that dude is ridiculously tough, as you alluded to earlier, Jonathan. Like, that Mexican warrior fighting spirit, that is a real thing. He took shots early in that fight and just walks forward, keeps pumping that jab, and just, I think, like Alf said, Figueiredo wasn't really ready for that kind of pushback, that kind of fight coming out
pressure.
Right, pressure. That pressure, exactly. I mean, Moreno, like, for the most part, if he wasn't coming forward in that fight, which was something that started happening towards the latter portion of that fight, in the first couple of rounds, he'd eat a monster shot and then counter and catch Figueiredo constantly. And I think he might have shown a couple of deficiencies in Figueiredo's stand-up style, where he's a little bit of like a Muay Thai brawler in that he'll sell out to land huge shots, but he leaves himself a little bit vulnerable after those shots. And Moreno's got really good hands. He can find those counter shots. He's got a really good jab. That fight, if not for, what was it, Joanna Weili, I think was like the fight of the year in 2020.
Yeah, I think so.
If not for that insane fight, I think that probably wins fight of the year, right? So I'm super pumped for this one. Jonathan and I were talking about this before the show, and we were both kind of on the same wavelength here. At least I was saying that I think I'm going with Moreno here, because I feel like, Figueiredo shows a little bit of at least in the last fight for sure, he showed just a general slowing down as the fight wore on, and maybe a lack of maybe his cardio isn't quite where it needs to be. But then I consider the fact that he cuts a lot of weight, right? Like, it's hard for him to make that weight cut. Jonathan, you told me, I think it was like something like within a minute before the deadline to make weight was when Figueiredo made weight for this fight. Is that correct? Did I read that right?
Yeah, it was. There was a minute or two left on the. I think it's like a 3-hour weigh-in period that you have for the UFC. There was a minute or two left where Deiveson was able to get down to championship weight. If I'm right, wow. I think he needed the towels. They have the new little rack thing, so he was do that. But he made 125. But I had sorry to go ahead and break to that point, but go ahead and finish your point. I'll get into that weight cut.
I was just going to finish on that. Just that weight cut issue for him. Like, if he's cutting a lot of weight, a guy like Moreno, who reminds me a little bit of, like, maybe, I don't know who, like Tony Ferguson or somebody, just the type of fighter that gets stronger as the fight goes on and it gets dirtier and harder. He rises to the occasion. He showed that in that last fight. So I was leaning Moreno really strongly, and then Alf kind of brought me back a little bit, because I feel like we've seen this before, where a fighter just performs, or a sports athlete of any sort, really just at any point in time performs so much above their baseline or what you expect from them, and then they're not able to replicate it because, frankly, it was just the perfect time, the right timing, all of these factors that factor into that sort of performance. So I might change my prediction here. I really, actually, genuinely, at this very point in time, don't know where I'm going with this fight, but I see avenues to victory for both guys.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great
And we
fight.
spoke about this. I think we spoke about this last night, Jonathan. The fight's not in Vegas, but it's in Glendale, Arizona. Close enough, right?
Yes.
And the best combat sports fans in the world are Mexican fans. They travel. They'll pack that place. Moreno will be lifted by the crowd. Can it carry him in a fight? Man, I don't know. But it's going to be fun to watch. But he'll definitely have home field advantage. He'll have home arena advantage for sure in that fight.
Yeah, watching the press conference yesterday, Deiveson Figueiredo was getting booed, and this is the man that honestly I love. Dude, this
spectacular.
Guy, he brought life to that flyweight division. I mean, Cejudo did his thing, of course. Great fighter, but he's not as exciting as Deiveson Figueiredo, right? He's not as exciting. This guy brings one punch knockout power at 125 pounds. That's not something you see. He averages.
I think Henry did that to, was it Benavidez or somebody? There was some, or no, it was Demetrius Johnson, right? He cleaned his clock in one of his, I think it was Demetrius' last fight in the UFC. So I give you a little bit of pushback there.
Okay, fair point. But Deiveson averages one knockdown per fight in his UFC career.
No, you're right. Different kind of fighters. You're right.
You know what I mean? Fair point. There's people that if you catch them right with that one punch knockout power, but this guy's consistently doing it. What he did to Benavidez for the second time was a mugging, bro. He dropped him 3 times, choked him out, strangulation. Now I'm convincing myself about Deiveson Figueiredo, but getting back to this one, right? He has the great equalizer. That's the thing. It's almost like we talked about Lomachenko versus Teofimo Lopez. Lopez just had the great equalizer, and that was really what caused Lomachenko to be more cautious in that fight. And like you said, with catching lightning in a bottle, John Jones Gustafsson won. Right, number 2 was not as good as number 1. It was a lot more decisive. And that first fight was almost one of the best fights of all time. John Jones made that comeback, right, etc. If they can't catch lightning in a bottle, it'll be interesting. But getting into my prediction, I am going to go with Brandon Moreno. I picked Figueiredo yesterday. I was honestly thinking that, going to this fight, he's gonna land that shot. Moreno's a little overconfident. He keeps saying that he can feel the power, right? And now I'm scared if he feels that power and at the wrong angle, that he's going to get dropped, right? Because, you can feel the power, but now you have a guy you're a little bit more battered, right? You just went through a war. Now you're coming back and you're willing to eat those shots more because you're willing to trade. That makes me a little bit scared. But this morning in the weight cuts, man, like I said, Figueiredo made it barely. I did not know he was going to. There was 15 minutes to go and he was nowhere to be found. Like, that's scary for a championship fight. He was able to make it with a minute to go. We know that, like Alf said, the audience, and then Alex said it too, the crowd is heavily pro Moreno. Like he just said, if Moreno wrestles, I think he has a shot. I agree. He's going to have to wear him down. I think first 2 rounds are going to be key. It's almost like a Conor fight, right?
Got to survive.
Got to survive those first 2 rounds from Figgy. And that weight cut was awful. I know he's going to be drained tomorrow. I think if he's able to get a takedown or 2 early and forces him to scramble, because we know Figueiredo's takedown defense is phenomenal, but what it will do is drain him. So I'm going to take the wrestler. I'm going wrestlers all the way with these with this pick here. I think Moreno's able to take him down. I think he's able to counter strike him. I think Figueiredo's going to slow down as the fight goes on. Of course, there's that one punch power shot that Figgy can land and make me wrong, just like what Rose Namajunas did with Weili Zhang. But I'm going to go ahead and take Moreno with this one. Alf, you got Figueiredo.
I think I got Figueiredo by stoppage early in the 4th round. Let's call it 4th round. Like sometime early in the 4th round, it'll be an accumulation of punches. Figueiredo wins.
Ariel?
So I just remembered something as we were all talking. And you guys, Jonathan, Alf, you guys correct me if I'm wrong. I believe in their first fight, a day or two, I think it was the Friday, maybe the Thursday leading up to the fight. Wasn't Figueiredo like very sick?
Yeah,
I believe he.
Shit.
Now,
he was in the hospital. He was actually in the hospital. Fight took place on a Saturday night. He was in the hospital Wednesday through Friday. Wow. Showed up at the arena. He showed up at the arena on Friday to do weigh-ins, and then he fought Saturday.
Okay, so with that refresher in my mind, I think that maybe I'm overthinking this a little bit. I think I'm leaning towards where Alf is going. I was Moreno up until we started the show. I've changed my mind. I think Figueiredo is the higher caliber of fighter. I think he has better combos. He's more spectacular and has the nuclear option, like you guys alluded to, where he can connect and it can be lights out at any time. I think he has probably a few more avenues to victory here. I am concerned with the weigh-in and how he looked and the cardio issues that we saw in the last fight, but I kind of feel like maybe for sure that was impacted by his being sick leading up to the fight and being in the hospital and all of that stuff. I'm going Figueiredo by decision. I think Moreno's a tough son of a gun, and I don't know if he'll be able to finish him, but I think we get another really good fight. Figueiredo wins a little bit more decisively this time. Sorry, Alex.
No, you're good. You're good. Figgy's a better striker. I mean, yeah, man, it's a tough one to call. This is probably the toughest fight.
Yeah, this is a really, 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 like I said, it's a tough fight to call, and like I said, it's a 50. I'm flipping a coin, either but think about what you're flipping a coin for. Okay, either Brandon Moreno's an elite flyweight, or he shot a shot. More likely than not, in the UFC and in boxing, guys shoot their shot, and maybe his gun is empty come Saturday night.
Yeah, I think it's like 70% of rematches. It always favors the champion, right? And they also had you take that point away, Deiveson wins that fight. You know what I mean? So that's another thing as well. So I'm taking Moreno because, hey man, we're going all day right here. Obviously, we got the Adesanya rocking the Naruto shirt. So we got Adesanya, we got Moreno, all of our weebs out there. Shout out to all of our weebs. Let's get into the next fight. Nate Diaz making his return after the BMF. Did he fight one more time after the BMF? Can't remember off the top of my head. But he's taking on Leon Edwards, who's on a 9-fight win streak right now, third longest fight win streak in the history of the division, the great welterweight division. Looking to make a title run, right? Looking to get that one name that'll put him over the top, and this can be it. Let's just break this down real quick. Ariel, I'll let you break this one down and give your predictions. How do you see this one going?
Man, fun fight. I'm excited. Leon Edwards is on just a tear. If you're able to look past the last fight against Bilal Muhammad, right, where there was the eye poke, which led to the no contest, he's just on fire, right? I think Leon has every advantage in this fight pretty much, except for maybe the submission game, but I think his top game is probably good enough to avoid getting caught in this fight if that's where it ends up. I think he kind of decides where this fight takes place. I think he's more technical on the feet than Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz has phenomenal boxing, but he eats a lot of shots. He takes a lot of shots in order to land his, and he doesn't have, Nate, I'm talking about, doesn't have a ton of knockout power. He doesn't generally knock dudes out, right? So I think Leon probably dictates where this fight takes place. I think he lands at will on the feet, and he can mix in enough takedowns if he chooses to and avoids getting caught. Like I said, Diaz eats a lot of shots, but he's always game. It's hard as hell to knock that dude out. I'm leaning pretty heavily Leon Edwards here, but we have seen Nate Diaz pull off this type of upset in spots where he should have had no business being in that fight. Look no further than the first Conor McGregor fight where he was on short notice, I believe, if I remember correctly, and just went in there, and we know what happened there. That plus 400 is very tempting to me. I don't really think he's going to win this fight, but if you are a gambler, that might be a little sneak peek at my parlay a little bit later.
Awesome. Alf, how you feeling about this one? Give me a quick breakdown and give me your prediction.
Okay, I think Leon Edwards, we talk about setups all the time.
Yeah.
I think Leon Edwards is a setup for Nate Diaz to be quickly retired after this fight. Okay, I think this is a terrible matchup for Nate Diaz, and it's really it's on him really, because Nate Diaz, if he could pull guard or he could get the fight to the ground, his jiu-jitsu I think is good enough to win this fight. But where's the evidence? Where's the evidence that he's actually going to stick to a game plan where he's going to try to get the fight to the ground with a striker and actually win that way? We saw it with Conor, but even with Conor, he ate a ton of punches. I don't think he can do that against Leon Edwards. I think he'll try to stand up. It'll be entertaining. It'll be entertaining as hell.
Yeah.
But I think Leon Edwards could get a finish here. Very similar to what Masvidal did to him last time out. So let's call it TKO early third round.
Yeah, I didn't jump in with my prediction there. My bad. I'm going similarly to Alf here. I think you either get a really late stoppage by Leon Edwards, but I don't know. I mean, Nate's tough as nails. A couple years out of the octagon might factor into just the fight in general in a lot of different ways in terms of his cardio, his ability to take shots. He's a little bit older now, so I could see Leon Edwards finishing the fight really late. I could see him dominating a decision.
Yeah, I feel that way too. Like you said, Nate Diaz has that toughness. Getting into May breakdown a little bit. Leon's really good with those elbows, man, and he's really good with those leg kicks. He's really good with that body kick. We know that Nate doesn't like to check the leg kick too much. So like, who said it? Alex said it. Fighting up from the outside and using those leg kicks, I agree with you, because Nate doesn't check those leg kicks. And, I mean, he can tough him out. I mean, we've seen him tough it out in a long time, but if you hit the right spot, you can see a Sugar Sean O'Malley kind of thing where that leg just goes dead. He hits that nerve, and then that's the end of that. But what I'm going to say, I'm going to take a doctor stoppage. I think that those elbows of Leon Edwards are super dangerous. I think this is going to be a fight that has actually a lot of clinch work. So I do see a lot of elbows getting landed. I want to say what's up to Jackson Copeland, saying you didn't know that 5 reasons cover UFC. Yeah, we're covering UFC. We're going to be popping off all summer long without the NBA and the NFL. We actually had covered PFL last night, the Clarissa Shields debut. We're going to have a post show, reacting to everything after this tomorrow. We're always covering that. Jermaine King getting to this fight saying Leon, he's a natural welter. That's another thing as well, right? Nate Diaz is really more of a 155er, so that's another thing we got to look at as well. I'm taking Leon Edwards. I'm taking Dr. Stoppage. I'm going to say 3rd or 4th round with this one. Any closing thoughts on this card before we move on to the just a couple of fights to watch before we close out here?
My only closing thought would be where does this leave? Assuming that Leon Edwards gets a stoppage, where does this leave him in the welterweight division? Because it's pretty crowded there.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that, like you mentioned earlier, Alf, this fight is the put the name on your resume and move on up fight. It's just like, this is only happening to A, pull eyeballs to the card, and B, to elevate Leon into that, okay, he beat Nate Diaz. The hardcores know Nate Diaz in 2021 is not Nate Diaz of 2016 or 17 or 18. Right. But that name on your resume, it means something. It sets you up for an ability for the UFC to sell him in a big fight matchup, right? He hasn't always been the most entertaining fighter in every fight. So I think in the next fight, if assuming he gets this W, you get a shot, to win a fight, to get a title shot, essentially.
Yeah, actually, Brian was asking about this one. So, Brian, this is perfect. The winner of Edward Diaz go to Usman, or Usman Covington 2 first. I think they're setting up Usman Covington 2 for the August card. I don't think there's a headliner for the August card right now. So I think they're setting up. I know they finalized, or I believe they finalized that fight. So that fight is in the works. But I think Edwards is next, right? If Stephen Wonderboy Thompson beats Gilbert Burns, then Stephen Thompson, I think, deserves the next shot. But I think if Leon wins this fight and Stephen Thompson loses, then you got to give it to Leon Edwards, man. 10-fight win streak in the division.
Man, why would the UFC do that to Stephen Thompson at this age? But anyways, let's move on.
Yeah. So
good.
Real quick, because we're coming up on almost 50 minutes. I'm coming out here, so I just want to close out a couple of these fights. Feel free to jump in if you want to. A fun one in Bilal Muhammad versus Damian Maia. Right, you have a pressure fighter. Bilal Muhammad will throw a bunch of strikes for you. Dude's tough as nails. But Damian Maia is stepping up. Maybe this might be his last fight. We could see that happening. That's one fun fight to watch. Potential number 1 contenders fight in the prelims. We have Lauren Murphy versus Joanne Calderfoot. This is the 125-pound division. If you look at the top 3 in that division right now, I don't have a list in front of me, but I know she beat Jessica Andrade. I know she beat Jennifer Maia as well. And I think number 3 or 4 is Lauren Murphy. Whoever the number 3 is, she beat number 3 right now as well. So Lauren Murphy is number 4, I believe. Joanne Calderwood's number 6. Winner of this fight probably gets Shevchenko. Either you guys can jump in. Do either of these people or either of these women pose a real threat to Valentina Shevchenko?
No.
Fair.
Yeah, if we're gonna be completely honest, no. Good fight, should be entertaining tomorrow night, but no, Shevchenko's just an animal. She's a buzzsaw. She's a murderer. That's. I mean, I like Calderwood. She's fun. Good Muay Thai. Good stand up. Really good in the clinch, and especially when exiting the clinch. But if we're being real, man, Valentina's just on a different level.
Yeah. I'm that fight though.
Yeah, I'm done. I'm done trying to beat Valentina anymore, especially after her last fight. So, yep.
Yeah, a couple more bangers on the undercard. We have Drew Dober taking on Brad Riddell. Brad Riddell, obviously the guy out of kickboxing, working out with Israel Adesanya out there in New Zealand. And Drew Dober just lost to Islam Makhachev, but, man, this dude is a monster. He's grew into his own. He's a monster at 155, really well-rounded. coming up on that one. Rematch, Eric Anders, Darren Stewart. First one, they had 2 knockdowns in the first round. Eric Anders, ya boy, gonna get to hear Bruce Buffer scream, ya boy, in the middle of the ring, which is always a beauty. But he's gonna go ahead and take that one as well. Hakeem Dawodu versus Movsar Evloev. Trying to say that right, but 14-0 for Movsar Evloev, 12-1 for Hakeem Dawodu. I think Dawodu's on a 5-fight win streak right now. Collision course with 2 of the young guys in the division, in that 145-pound. Next guy that the winner of this fight is going to face is going to be a ranked contender for sure. I think that wraps it up with me as far as fun fights. Any of you guys? Oh, Chase Hooper. He's always fun to watch. He's 10-1. He's getting a setup in Steven Peterson. We talk about setups all the time. He's getting a setup in Steven Peterson. So Chase Hooper, check that one out. Check out Movsar Evloev, Lauren Murphy Calderwood, Dober versus Riddell. Man, this whole card is a pretty good banger. Any closing thoughts before we close out right here?
Excited. Nope. I don't have anything else to add here. I'm about pumped. I mean, those that main card is dope. You got good fights on the undercard. It's going to be a good one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a great card. It's a great card all around. And what's kicking off the main card, Paul Craig, Jamal Hill, like it's an interesting dynamic. You know, who can get it to the ground? Who's going to want to stand up? Jamal Hill's going to want to stay behind his punches, put punches together, and try to get a finish with his hands, while Paul Craig is going to want to get a submission. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic. Who gets it? Like that fight, I can't call. So that's a fight I won't have in my parlay.
Go ahead, Ariel. I know you had a parlay for tonight. You want to close up with your parlay?
I want to throw it in the trash right now. I have no idea what I'm doing with this stupid parlay. I guess it's going to be boring, you guys. Bet the house on Bilal Muhammad and Izzy Adesanya, both favorites. Not going to pay a ton, but if you bet enough money and risk all of your savings, you'll make a good amount back because I think both will win.
Fair point.
I'm gonna play a 3 favorite parlay. Okay, so the 3 top fights. So essentially, you're taking Izzy, you're taking Figueiredo, you're taking Leon Edwards. Those 3, take the 3 favorites just to win. Parlay it. You should get somewhere around even money. I think that's a great bet.
Yeah, absolutely. Alex Sam saying, cheers, fellas. Hope for a good card. 3 5-round fights. Fight may take forever. Hey, maybe, but if there's some early finishes, maybe not. We'll see how that goes. As far as my parlay goes, I'm going to start with the Bilal Muhammad versus Damian Maia fight. I'm going to take Bilal Muhammad, and I'm going to take that one going the distance. So I'm going to say that one going the distance. And I'm going to have the Israel Adesanya fight. I'm going to have him going over 2.5 rounds and going into and getting that win. So Israel Adesanya over 2.5 or over 3. I think it's over 3.5 with these fights because it's a 5-rounder. So over 3.5 with Israel Adesanya. And then you're going to have Bilal Muhammad going over for that. And Alex M saying, bet Nate for the underdog money. Hey, man, if you want to hedge your bets and throw some money on Nate, that's a great idea because that's a great thing. You never know. You just never know.
It's a great idea if you're rich and you got money to throw away.
Fair point. And with that, guys, we appreciate you joining us. Like I said, we might do a post show if it's a great card tomorrow, which it probably will be. We might do a post show. We did a post show last night at 1 a.m. for the PFL Clarissa Shield card. So, hey, we got to do it for our boy Israel Adesanya. Appreciate everybody joining us. Alex, Brian, our boy Brian from the 5 Reasons Network. Appreciate you joining us. Jackson Copeland, Players Ball, joining us. Jermaine King. And yes, sir. Thank you all for joining us. Thanks to my boy, Mr. Ariel Diaz, the OG fight genius, Mr. Alfredo Arteaga. I'm your host, Jonathan Ramlakan. And from this week on Walkouts and Knockouts, we'll see you guys after the fight.